Hey everyone, it's Luke Frye, Washington CPA and co-founder of Timber Tax, and today we're going to talk a bit more about the Payroll Protection Program. Second wave of funding was released from the Small Business Administration, so it's going to be beneficial for almost all of you. If you have not applied for the Payroll Protection Program, you probably need to, and if you don't know for sure, you should call me today because the money probably will run out again. And so almost everyone who has net income from last year and is affected by COVID should qualify for a payroll protection program loan. The biggest thing that we're getting to now, over the last few weeks, it's been an interesting process because we've gone from, what is this thing? How do we apply for it? Where do we apply for it? To now it ran out and now we're applying again. So some of you who have received funding for that, so the next step once you apply and get approved is funding. So once you're funded, how can you make sure it's forgiven? Because remember, this Small Business Administration loan is actually something that turns into more like a grant, free money. And so how do you make sure that happens for you? And I'm going to speak specifically right now to sole proprietors, single member LLCs, qualified joint ventures, people who report their income on a Schedule C. Okay, so that means I'm not talking right now about S corporations. I'm not talking about corporations or partnerships. I'm talking about self-employed people, people who own their own businesses and report on Schedule C. Okay, and it's actually simpler than you might think. So the way the application has been working, I just helped somebody last night apply on Bluevine, and this morning they were approved. So again, Bluevine is who I've been recommending. They work pretty well. You could also apply through Fundera, and then they match you with somebody, but typically that's going to be someone like Bluevine. If you aren't able to submit an application, let me know. So some notes on the sole proprietor application. When you're asked for anything payroll related, submit your Schedule C. Okay, and just the pages that say Schedule C from your 2019 tax return. All of our clients, if you were with us on 2019, even if we haven't finished your return, we've uploaded a draft of your Schedule C to your client portal. Your client portal, if you're working with us, is always at timbertax.co up at the very top right of the page. Just click the link for client portal. And we've saved documents there that say Schedule C. And then we also saved a document in there that says your PPP calculation. So, okay, you have documents, you've applied. The point of today's live is to really talk through, okay, how can we make sure that it's forgiven? The easiest way to think about that for a self-employed person, because when you're looking all this information up, it's going to say payroll records, payroll employees, that sort of a thing. So if you have employees, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to some single owner business, self-employed person who reports on a Schedule C. You should automatically be forgiven for 850 seconds, so 2 months, 8 weeks out of 52 for a year, 2 months of your Schedule C net income from 2019. So that 2019 amount that you used to apply for 2.5 months of the loan, as far as we know right now, automatically you just get 2 months forgiven. I've given people advice, if you want to be a little bit more conservative, I will stand by this advice, is to transfer yourself just, half of whatever you got in 1 month, so May, and then the other half in the second month. I don't think that's actually going to need to be proven, because my understanding is the forgiveness is really just based on your Schedule C net income. So that means, let's just say for an example, you made $100,000 last year. And so I'm going to divide that by 12 to figure out what your monthly is, 83.33. I'm going to multiply that by 2.5. Okay, that means that you're going to get a loan of almost $21,000. So that loan of $20,833 is actually going to be forgiven only for 2 months worth. So now I'm going to get rid of that half a month. that means you're going to get $16,666 forgiven on that loan. The rest of it becomes a loan that you have to pay back, but there is some additional relief. Good question, Mina. Yes, based on my hyper-conservative, like, let's have additional records, that is what I'm recommending, is that you could write a check, or however you do an owner draw to pay yourself, one half in May, the other half in June. But what I'm reading everywhere is that you actually don't even have to do that. It's just automatically based on your 2019 Schedule C number. It's just forgiven, whether you leave it in the business or not. My advice still is to go ahead and transfer it. I think that's unnecessary, probably not going to change anything, but just to help be more conservative and have some sort of records, I would transfer one half of it in May and one half of it in June. Yeah, I totally understand the idea of a paper trail, but the reality is, in our world today, many people don't use checks, and so a paper trail is more of a metaphor for some sort of proof. And so a bank transfer is totally proof. Again, I don't even think that you need to have that. I'm just providing it as an additional way to have assurance and think through how to make sure it's forgiven. So back to my example of the $100,000 from 2019. If you made $100,000 in 2019 and you qualified for that $20,833, then what that means is your forgiveness amount on payroll. So when you're self-employed, that's just your net income. So your payroll, if you applied through Bluevine or any others, when you submitted documents, you just set your Schedule C. There was no 940 or 941 if you don't have employees. This is quite nuanced, because generally when I talk to you as a single owner business who's an LLC or sole prop, we never use the word payroll, because it's not payroll. It's not payroll taxes. In this instance, we're bending some of that terminology to fit the reality of the situation, and the spirit of the law is what we talk about when we're thinking through that. And so your net income from Schedule C on 2019 is the golden number, almost quite literally the golden number. And so if we're forgiven for this $16,666, 67, I guess, then we have this other like $4,000, $5,000 that's maybe having to be repaid. So option one, just put it in a savings account, repay it. Option two, as something that we're going to work through with all of you together as we find out more and as you are allowed to apply for forgiveness, is pay utility bills. Utility bills and interest are two things that you're allowed to use it for. Typically, the interest is on a loan that you already had, I think, at February 15th. So you can't go get a loan now and then add on interest payments. So what we're talking about there might be a percentage of your home mortgage interest based on your home office square footage. It also might be business debt that you have that was incurred before February 15th. The other thing that can be forgiven is utilities. I'm going to assume that includes internet, phone, water, if you have a separate bill like that, anything considered utilities. And it's going to really continue to develop as we find all this stuff out. So unfortunately, I can't see too far into the future, but what it sounds like is for self-employed people, single owner businesses, it's almost automatically whatever your 2019 number was. For 2 months will be forgiven for payroll. So you don't have to worry about hiring people. You don't have to worry about payroll forms. You don't even technically need to worry about transferring money. I'm just offering that as a way to provide additional, to use Mina's words, paper trail in case we want to make sure we have that. I think that's not a bad idea. And then the other thing is a reminder to go ahead and apply for Washington or whatever state you're in unemployment, and then just keep them posted as you receive money. So if you receive money from the Payroll Protection Program loan, make sure you tell them, and then you go off of unemployment, and then you go back on unemployment if you need to after that. So I hope that helps. I know that there's some uncertainty even to some of my answers there. The reality is, we just have to operate on our best faith in the resources we have, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm recommending. Don't stress too much about having any sort of payroll records. When you're self-employed, the forgiveness number is really just going to be 8/52, so 2 months worth of your 2019 Schedule C. So that means half of a month will probably need to be repaid unless you have utility bills or interest that you're paying. Potentially, if you hired another employee and actually had them on payroll, that could be forgiven. I wouldn't necessarily go out and do that right away just to try and burn that money up. But if you already have an employee or payroll set up, there's a potential that that could actually work in your favor. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to leave them directly on this live, and we will reply back as soon as we can. And if you have any other questions, just go to timbertax.co and book a meeting with us. Email me, luke@timbertax.co. Just try calling me. Just book a meeting. If you have not applied for the payroll protection program, I cannot stress enough, you need to know why you haven't. If you do not know that you should not apply, then you absolutely need to be applying right away. And we're trying to help as many of you as possible get that done so you stay in business, so we can stay in business. All right. Thank you so much.